I will say that both Nicole and Bobby are super serious about trying to figure out what's gone wrong with the government science nexus. And that what many people have been left with post-COVID is a sense that somehow science has become unreliable in a particular sense. And I think both Nicole and Bobby, from two totally different perspectives, Nicole is a funder of science and Bobby is a fighter in environmental and health issues, I have a very strong sense that we can't simply go to the point of saying that something is a highly respected study, that it's something has achieved currency through peer review. These are people willing to take a deeper look, and for whatever their faults that you might ascribe to them, many of which I don't think are their faults, both of them are extremely interested in learning from disparate voices, which is not something I think that can be said for the Democratic Party. I will say that J.D. Vance is a friend of mine, and he's also very smart and a great listener and somebody who behind the scenes looks very different than the campaigner that you're seeing. So I would say that for the first time in a long time, we have a lot of people who are seeking the number one and number two slots, who have an ability to question at a level that is quite a bit deeper. And one of the things that I hope, if people have seen the podcast with Nicole, is that she's got really, strong, informed views about the nexus between markets and law and between markets and science and how philanthropy fits into that. These are people who care very deeply about fixing the problems with science and the perception of science. So I think that there's a lot to be very excited about, and I highly recommend, if people just wanted to tune into the portion where Nicole and I are talking about peer review, and she's asking me to go into a little bit of a history of peer review. Nobody else would do that. So it's kind of, it's an easy way to point out what's interesting and different about this campaign from my perspective is who else dares ask the question, where did peer review come from? Well, the funny part about it, of course, is that I think a lot of people got to know Nicole through the negative lens of mainstream media rather than through her frustrations as a philanthropist of science. So she's invested in the idea that she wants to help science personally, and that was pre-campaign. And then she's suddenly in a position where she can say, why is it so difficult to help science when we all need science? We all rely on science for our national defense, for national health, for to grow the economy, all sorts of ways. Why aren't we asking the really tough questions? And it was just delightful that suddenly you get to see a vice presidential candidate who you've never heard of necessarily before asking about Ronald Coase and Coasean economics. She's dialed in at a very technical level. So the whole idea of getting into the weeds and getting past the stump speech, this is something that was really of interest to me. Both Bobby and Nicole, and they're different, very different, have a geek aspect to them where they want to get down in the weeds. And sometimes that doesn't play so well on the campaign trail when things are about big themes and theories. I just think it's really important that people know that these are people who, when the campaigns are over, know how to get down and dirty and to ask very difficult technical questions in the weeds about how to make things good. All right, so you're really making me work because each time I'm going to try to tie it back to your room because I'm trying not to commandeer your room. Here's what I think. First of all, why are we spending our time speculating about what the phenomenon is in our own country? I don't understand that. This is my country. It's of, by, and for the people. This is ridiculous. It's just absolutely absurd. We need the information now. It may have national defense and security implications. But you cannot do this. You cannot denature people by feeding them contradictory nonsense so that their heads explode and they all look like idiots, which is going to get to your second point. So, what I'm very unhappy to do is how do I put this? It's a little bit like science as soccer, where the normal portion of playing football is a skill game, and then if you tie, you can end up in penalty kicks, which is basically a game of luck. I don't want to guess what the phenomenon is. I want to demand the information as a as a citizen of the United States and as a technical person. Do I believe that Bobby and Nicole will seek this information? Very, very definitely. And I want to say something which is really tough to say, to hear, but needs to be said. Bobby Kennedy is willing to risk his life to seek this office. And the weight of what happened to his father and to his uncle clearly rests on his shoulders. Unfortunately, the low IQ mainstream sees all conspiracies the same way, and so they say a conspiracy theorist is a lunatic. But there's a huge difference between the odds that there was some sort of state involvement in the Kennedy assassination in Dallas, and wondering whether or not that there was a moon landing. Almost certainly we landed on the moon, but the possibility of state involvement in the Kennedy assassination is not merely the province of lunatics. Many serious people believe that. And, what I would say is that these people are interested in disclosure. And almost certainly they know that this is a life and death question. When you ask questions of the intelligence community, things have been covered up. One of the possibilities for the UFO situation is that it is an all-purpose cover operation for all sorts of things that have been done, and that we have UFO programs that may contain no UFOs in the sense of alien craft at all, but may have been used repeatedly for super secret things. And now the population wants to know, well, what the heck are these UFO programs that are denied? I've been early from the perspective of my colleagues of saying that these programs exist, but I'm late from the perspective of the UFO community. I don't know what it is. I just think that basically we're denying something. And if you're so bad at running covert operations that everybody knows about these things, you have to blow your cover at some point, because you're deranging the population on these points. We need to know where COVID came from. We need to know what happened with the assassinations. We need to have an understanding of the UFO phenomena. We have to understand the nature of our monetary aggregates and goosing the money supply. We have to have an idea of why we're in Ukraine for real and not some BS narrative. We need to know what we can and cannot do in terms of NATO to readjust our situation. We don't want to overturn an apple cart that's structural. On the other hand, I don't think most of us want to continue to listen to a tiny group of elite we've never met, what they want us to do. And I think one of the biggest issues, if you've read my recent tweets, is the idea that the current situation is that the oligarchy that pretends to be a democracy is very angry with people actually expecting to vote. Low, in order to win, he needs a tremendous amount of luck, and then you need to know how to capitalize on luck. So what I would say is that the odds, I'm not going to BS you that the odds are good, the odds are lousy. Lots of things where the odds are lousy actually end up happening. If you listen to my Chris Williamson interview from February, Chris says to me, who's going to win in November? He said, you had predictive power before, to some extent, when you said that people were lying that they weren't going to vote for Trump in 2016. And I told him, I said, is Joe Biden even going to make it to November? Why? Because Biden had been with dementia and some senility for his entire time in office. I think that was obvious to anybody who's been around the elderly. I don't understand how we decided to deny it as a country. I don't understand how none of the neurologists and psychiatrists and Parkinson's experts seem to say anything. I don't know how he's finishing out his term, caring about the politics of the United States if he can't run. I don't know why Kamala didn't say anything. Nothing makes any sense. So if you want my honest answer is that as long as Bobby and Nicole are standing, this thing is so volatile. We've had an assassination attempt, a surprise withdrawal. We're going to have a crazy potential convention situation. Think about the 68 Democratic convention. My guess is that people are low energy and they're going to sheep their way through this, but you never know what's going to happen. So what I would say is as long as Nicole and Bobby are standing there and they're on the ballot, the real question is there a wave of interest behind them, or is everyone so locked into elephants and donkeys that they can't see another way? So yeah, I think the odds are lousy, but they're not zero, and you need luck. I think Bobby has gotten a lot of luck. And then the question is, are any of you brilliant enough to run with it and make anything happen? I myself am taking a position where I am standing back and looking at this, and neither Nicole nor Bobby has asked me to endorse or to join or anything like that in a really strong way. What they are doing is they're listening. And holy cow, is that weird? Can you imagine? Like, I forget that I have a Harvard PhD in a science and that I've been in Washington, D.C. advising the National Academy in years past. I'm now so used to being treated like a pariah by my own party, the Democrats, that I forget that I've accomplished things, that I'm a respectable member of society, that I don't have to slink around on my belly. It's so bizarre to have really smart people engage you for all of the time that you've spent reading microfiche and sorting through papers and learning the history of what made American science the envy of the world. I'm here because these guys are consulting me and asking, how did we get here and how do we unscrew ourselves? And let me tell you, the Trump camp isn't doing it. JD might reach out at some point, at which point I'll let you know. I can promise you that nothing in the Democratic Party, my party, is going to reach out in a positive fashion. The New York Times isn't going to ask a question. I'm not going to be asked to go to Princeton or Harvard or Stanford, to confer with anyone. In general, the people who are confident are asking questions. And, in many ways, that's Bobby and Nicole, because they want answers. If they were to win, how would they make a positive impact? This is most likely not going to work. You promise me you're not going to have your heart broken if it doesn't work. If it is going to work, it's going to work because people get crazily excited about this, and you have some unusual luck that gets you through. So the most important thing to realize is that this candidate, if you are investing in this campaign, I can promise you in the case of both of these people that the campaign will not end when they are either elected or throw in the towel. They will continue to do these things. And if you're serious about this stuff, don't get involved in the horse race and the hope and have your hopes dashed. Recognize that these people are planning for a much longer story. And that story has to do with the fact that large swaths of America are not consulted. Many of you don't have anyone who you feel is your technical voice at the table when it comes to climate change, when it comes to pharmaceuticals, when it comes to what's going on in your kids' schools or how to keep the peace in the world in the Middle East or Eastern Europe. These people are trying to figure it out. And what I can promise you is they care about that independent of winning and losing, right? That's not going to stop. So just promise me you're not going to get disillusioned if this doesn't work and you're going to fight like hell. Great to be with you all.